Moving up, we have the propane canister. Again, for this particular trip, I might be able to cut this one down and go with a smaller one if we're not going as long. Sometimes I just get these and that's what I've got. And I'm like, screw it, I'm just taking it anyway. The Snow Peak, can't remember the model on this. I've really liked it. It works well for what I need to do, just boil water mainly for your mountain houses. So very lightweight because it's titanium. And then this is the MSR Pocket Rocket. Gosh, I've been using this, guys, for years and years and years. You've seen it all the way back on the early backpacking videos. This thing has worked really well, so definitely we'll be taking that. Water management. That is a huge thing. More so hunting than backpacking that I have found, because generally backpacking, I'm following some river, some streams are nearby, you're going to a lake, something of that nature, so water is pretty plentiful. Hunting, that's a different story in my experience. So the gravity filter system that I have used in the past that I really like, for me, hunting, it just doesn't, it may or may not fit. Because sometimes what you're getting is you're just getting little puddles of water, and that's what you're using to get your water. So this is, what is it? It's the Katadyn. I've had this one for a long time too. I actually need to get it out and let it dry out. But the Katadyn Hiker. And this one has worked really good for me and has got me out of some jams, some seriously bad ones too. I was filtering some pretty nasty water. But this actually worked really well. So I will definitely stick with this system while I'm hunting. Oh, that reminds me. The water bladder. What I wanted to go over there is, so again, depending on the trip, this next trip that I go on, if I go into the same area, I know where there's some very reliable water sources. You got to be careful with water sources because sometimes it depends on the time of year. It depends on how much moisture you've received. And I'm talking about my area. Some of the water that was there previous is no longer there. However, the last place I went, there's one reliable water source where there will always be water. So what I would do next time going in is I always only take 1 liter to cut down on a lot of that weight, especially going in. And then I could just filter right when I get there and then just make that small little push up to camp with a full 2 liters. So that's another way I can save a lot of weight, because water, man, that gets heavy. Sleeping bag, kind of the same story there. What I'm running here, this is a 20-degree sleeping bag, which is a lot heavier than my 32-degree sleeping bag. And my 32-degree is actually down, so that thing is crazy light. It packs down so small, I love that. But it's getting to that point of year where it's getting a little bit cold. I'd rather run a 20 and just be comfortable at night and deal with a little bit of extra weight and a little extra bulk. So again, a lot of this is trip dependent, time of year dependent. So this is kind of a snapshot in time of the time of year. Clothes, I don't have all my clothes down here, they're being washed, so I'll just have to speak to that a little bit. But I always run a hoodie and then a full sleeve synthetic shirt and an undershirt. I wouldn't change that much. We've been so dry up here that the rain hasn't really been an issue, so I can get away with not bringing my rain gear, save a little bit of weight there. And in the past, what I've done with rain is I just hunker down under a tree. If you can find a good pine tree, that's very helpful. Again, this is very situational dependent, because obviously if you're going to be hunting above tree line, that starts to change things drastically, right? Especially when we get to my sheltering system. So clothes-wise, really, the things that I want to highlight is thermals. I did bring thermals this time because in the mornings it's getting pretty cold, and when you're just sitting glassing, I get cold. So I thought, well, I'm gonna bring these, and actually I just bought some KUIU thermals, and they zip down the side, so you don't have to take off your boots, you don't have to take off your pants to take off your thermals, because then you start moving and it gets too hot. That's what I hate about thermals. So hopefully those will get here before we leave again this weekend, my oldest son and I. and I can utilize those. Gloves, I don't have the gloves down here with me right now, but even during pretty warm weather in the mornings, I don't know what it is, but my hands get really cold. And so I just take a very light, I don't know what they are, felt gloves or something like that, just enough to keep the cold at bay. And for me, that makes a big difference. Looking at the optics, obviously I'm gonna take these, you know, a big portion of the hunt. These are binos, these are, I just got Bushnells, these are 10 by 42s. I really like those. And then what I also, this is actually a lot of it I was researching and got suggestions from you guys. So what this piece does, for those that aren't familiar with it, is this attaches to your binoculars right here. It just screws in, and then, there we go, screws into your binoculars, and then you use this to mount to your tripod, and it makes a world of difference in the glassing department because it actually holds it really, really still. You'll be surprised at the detail you get opposed to just holding the binoculars. This I think will be a kind of fun discussion. The rangefinder, but this is the Nikon Aculon, and I'm getting rid of it. I don't like it. One of the things it doesn't do is it doesn't have the angle compensation. I naively thought, well, I'm probably not going to need that. And this year, especially this year, I've been in several situations where I'm up very high and we're looking down low at very steep angled shots. And my brother's rangefinder has the angle compensation on it, and we were just ranging things, waiting for animals to come in. I said, hey, what do you got on that rock right there? And it was about a 4-yard difference between his and mine. So, oh, the other thing is I ran into a moose, and I had a hard time ranging the moose because the moose are so dark. This thing, it was having a tough time picking it up. Now granted, I'm not going to be hunting moose, but I want something a little more reliable than what I've seen with this particular model. Other than that, it's actually been really good, but I'm finding I want to upgrade, and I should have done that just to begin with. Lesson learned. We've touched on this a little bit, but the phone, that's going to be extremely essential. I do find that I've got service on a fair amount of peaks because you get high enough, and the wife appreciates the text to say, hey, I'm still alive. She gets pretty worried that way, especially when I tell her I come in 20 yards from a moose. But more so, I mean, not more so. That's okay, she doesn't watch the videos. It's the onX Hunt app that I really, really like, and it tells the story, or it helps to start telling the story of the animals and where you're seeing them. So I really like that. Of all my knives, I think this is probably going to be the best knife. This is the Benchmade, gosh, I can't remember the model on this, but it's specifically made for skinning. So this is not a go up and process wood or carve little, the little wood guys that I carve. That's my EDC knife that I'll do that with. This one is to remain extremely sharp in case I get an animal. That way I use this for the processing. And this is a little DMT sharpening stone because I need to sharpen this probably as I'm tearing down the animal. If I can ever get one. You guys know I'm learning, right? I'm still learning. Stakes, this is for the tarp. And actually, let's move on over to that as we're talking about it. This is the system that I've been running if we're not sleeping in the truck, in the back of the truck. I love my hammocks. This is the Warbonnet Blackbird. This is a Warbonnet tarp. I can't remember the model on this, but and then this is an Eno underquilt. It was just one that I found on sale. This is a bit heavier than some of the other quilts underquilts you can buy, but you're going to pay for it too. And man, I just found a good deal on it, ran with it. So this is what I'll generally be running. Again, like I stated earlier, if you're going to be hunting above tree line or backpacking above tree line, of course you've got to evaluate the system, and probably not going to work for you. I'm a little undecided on this trip if we're going to do hammocks, me and my son, or if we'll do a tent. A tent in this case with both of us will probably be lighter, because then we can take the tent and split it up, where we won't have to each carry everything for a complete hammock system. So I'll have to look at that. If not, if we do go the hammock route, because oh man, I love sleeping in a hammock so much more than a tent. I only have one underquilt, so generally what we've done is we'll just take a blow up an air mattress, and then I'll use that in lieu of this. And this type of weather, I can pretty much get away with doing that and staying warm enough. So we'll probably go that route. I just love the hammocks, man. One thing I want to go back to the, not the binoculars, but the binocular case itself. Of course, I've got an elk call in there. I've got lighter and Vaseline covered cotton balls. That way, all of that stuff, especially the lighter and the flint and steel here, or the fire striker, whatever you call these, that stays on my person. Of course, I've got the smoke in a bottle that will be going with me, and then I've got all my license information in here as well. So that stuff's going to be very critical if you got in a bad situation and you needed to start a fire, which I've actually had a friend do that. He got in a pretty sticky situation and he had to get a fire to get himself warmed back up. He said he was in a bad spot. So that can and does happen. You want to be prepared for it. Then of course there's the bow. Bow goes with me. Quiver, of course, will go in the bow when it's not in the case. And there is the my release, obviously those things. I always forget to show those when people ask, because of course archery hunting, that's one of the main things. But obviously that will go. Another interesting phenomenon that I've noticed over the years that I've been backpacking is that the last trip really shapes the next trip as far as what gear I bring. Meaning, was the last trip rainy? Was it really dry? Was it hard to find water? What I find, and this isn't always correct, is that I'll often shape how I pack for the next trip. So if it was extremely hot, so let's say 1 week, and we go back 2 weeks later, well, there's not that much time that's passed. So, oh yeah, it was so hot, maybe I can skimp out on some things, and then you go, and then, well, the weather turned and it's actually kind of cold. So that's the interesting part of what I've noticed about me specifically, is how the previous trip really shapes the thought and philosophy of what goes into the next trip. I mean, there's those core pieces that don't change, right? But there's those little pieces around it that come and go that maybe gets shaped that way, and not always for the positive. I hope you guys found this one interesting. I personally like these videos. I know a lot of you guys like these videos, so hopefully you can garner something from this, either just from a pure backpacking side, and then just as a hunting side as I'm learning and going on with that. So I always appreciate you guys watching. Now I've made a complete mess. I'm looking at it on the floor. But thanks much. We'll see you.